Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of From the Vault. Tonight I'm joined by Alex
Hello.
and Stef. How's it
Hello.
going, guys?
Doing well.
Tonight we're talking to teammate and PT competitor on the eve of... It is the eve, right? Yeah, it's the eve of PT Rivals of Ixalan. Branoc, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Pretty good.
How's Bilbao?
Bilbao is strange. I haven't seen that much of the city because we've been holed up in our flat testing. But the brief time where we went over to the venue to register today, it was hailing, which was somewhat surprising. And yeah, not at all what you'd expect for Spain, but it is February. Probably nicer weather in Scotland.
We did have snow yesterday, so maybe not.
It's
I don't know.
really
Snow
cold
is
here.
better than hail, right?
I guess.
I mean, yeah, it hurts less, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really, really cold here. I've actually been a bit ill today, so I've been held up. But so yeah, who else is in Bilbao?
There's a decent collection of British players going over. If you remember, we have Andrew Rayner and Danny Anderson from our side of the wall.
Yeah.
But
Scotland.
I've been staying with James Allingham, who's from the sort of south area. He's on the Team Axion now, who you might have heard of, and also Niels Moll, who was the English World Magic Cup team captain last year. Lovely guy. We've just been in a couple of flats and talking to each other all week, doing lots of drafts, playing some modern, talking about all our findings.
Excellent.
I know a few of the Ixalan now, guys. They're really nice people.
Yeah,
they have a good setup.
So, how are you feeling about? So, just for anyone who's not aware, this is PT Rivals of Ixalan, and this is the first modern PT that we're going to have since Eldrazi Winter, which was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Bit of a disaster.
Yeah. So, how are you feeling about modern?
So, modern's in what most people would consider a really good spot at the moment. There's basically no overwhelmingly top deck. Every discussion I have about what you expect, we can't put any deck on being more than 10% of the field. We just can't predict that. So it's really difficult to prepare because there's no main target. The main decks we're expecting decent showings for Affinity, Grixis Death Shadow, Jeskai, various flavors of Tron, and Lantern Control is something we're expecting to put up a decent showing because we think a decent number of the pro players feel like it's the best deck now that the Ware of Invention's been adopted.
Yeah, that build's really good.
So I've got quite a few cards in my sideboard for the sort of colorless and artifact decks. I'm playing 2 Ceremonious Rejections as well as a Hercule's Recall, which is, I think, something that people won't be expecting because it's not common for Grixis Death Shadow lists, which is
that's
what I
spicy.
played at the RPTQ, and it's what I decided to just stick with the deck I knew the best.
Yeah, Hercule's Recall sounds really cool.
Yeah,
I think
because I figured that against the Affinity and Lantern decks in particular, quite often all you need is 1 turn, and being able to instant speed it is a bit better than by force, which is what I used to have in that spot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, makes sense. That sounds good. So yeah, you're playing Grixis Death Shadow, which is how you qualified for the PT.
Absolutely.
Yeah, run us through that real quick because that was a hell of a weekend for you.
So yeah, for a bit more details, I wrote a tournament report which you can find on the Murphy's Vault website. But the short story is, I was treating the weekend as a bit of a free roll because I wasn't qualified for the regional Pro Tour qualifier, but the venue was literally just around the corner from where I'm living in Edinburgh. So I thought, let's just go along, play some modern on Saturday, have a good time, maybe top 8, win some packs, just have a nice weekend and then do my thing Sunday, do a bit of work, as you do. I ended up winning the last chance qualifier, losing just 2 elves in the Swiss and otherwise not losing a match. So got some nice prizes and got to play in the regional Pro Tour qualifier the following day, where I ran the tables, finished first in Swiss, and then beat Dredge in the top 8 in quite an exciting but very, very short match where I won on turn 4 and turn 3.
Team of Battle Rage.
because
Woo!
Team of Battle Rage is
Gross.
great, and that was all down to Nathaniel, who isn't on the cast tonight, but is another member of Team Vault, basically realizing that the deck wanted Team of Battle Rage before the rest of the Magic community did by a couple of weeks. So
yeah, he was ahead of the curve on that one.
yeah, so we were playing Team of Battle Rage when people weren't expecting it, which was great. I don't have any particular innovations like that for this tournament. I'm just playing a pretty solid list.
I think Icons Record sounds like a really good shout, though. I mean, I know that's not like crazy or anything, but it's a cool sideboard slot which answers all of the threats that you're expecting.
Definitely. The other thing is we expect that there will be a number of people playing the 5-color humans deck. So what I've done is I've slightly diversified my removal suite to help against Meddling Mage, and I'm playing 3 Fatal Push, 2 Dismembers, and 1 Lightning Bolt.
Okay, so is that just like you just kind of spread your numbers out so that
exactly.
Always, you're right. Because I mean, they're mostly naming push, I imagine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, the matchup's still quite difficult because Reflector Mage is quite good against us.
Yeah, and then Phantasm Warriors Reflector Mage is just like game most of the time.
Yeah, really horrible.
So this episode's probably not going to come out until after the PT itself, so Monday, Tuesday time. So you can talk to us about what the other guys are playing and how they're feeling about that?
Yes. So everyone I've tested with is actually playing a completely different deck.
That's fun.
Andrew is playing the humans list that he qualified with at the RPTQ. He's actually slightly off the beaten path. Instead of playing Ether Files, he plays some more lands, some more Mana Docs, and Collected Company.
Yeah, you were saying that he found Ether Vial very slow.
Yeah, and just all an awful top deck.
Yeah.
Danny is playing Titan Shift because it's straightforwards and people have to react to him.
Lately. Yeah, he's been playing that a lot lately online.
Picked it as a deck he could just learn inside out, didn't have to worry about too much.
I think he was saying he was wielding the skill gap.
Yes, that's how he described it, with a little bit of irony. And then in my house, James Allingham, also qualified at the RPTQs, running back his Abzan Collected Company, Counters Company, Vizier combo, whatever you want to call it.
He beat me in the Swiss. It was a bit of a nail biter.
All right, cool. I managed to squeak past him in the Swiss in our win-in, but he got back in the last round. And then Niels is playing Affinity, and last I heard is that he is planning on playing in Soul Artifacts in some number of Steel Overseers.
That sounds cool.
Yes, partially because he really has a strong dislike for Steel Overseer, and basically we think in Soul Artifacts quite well positioned.
Interesting. That's cool.
He tested it in a few leagues online and said he won games purely on the back of an Soul Artifact that other cards wouldn't have done.
Sounds great.
He can give you a very fast clock, and against the Fatal Push deck, so you can never land it on a Dark Steel Citadel.
Yeah, exactly. So it's another reason why cards like Dismember are quite useful.
Oh jeez, I hadn't thought about Dark Steel Citadel. That's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool. That sounds good. And then obviously, Rails of Ixalan Unlimited. So how are you feeling about that?
Yes,
so excited.
People hated, maybe hate is a strong word, but strongly disliked Ixalan Limited.
I think quite a few
Rivals of Ixalan is much better. There is a lot of depth to the format, and what we've found over the course of this week is that the aggro decks have been getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And the exciting thing we've been finding is drafting sort of bigger Ascend-based decks has been really successful. And this is it's mostly either a blue-black or a blue-white deck. And because you're leaning quite hard on Sailor of Means as a blocker, you can end up splashing things. Other key cards are using either Dusk Charger or Spirewinder as your sort of common payoff finisher. And another card that people started quite low on and came up on is Snubhorn Sentry. We've been finding in the competitive leagues that Snubhorn Sentries at the start of the week, you could wheel them, and yesterday you cannot wheel them anymore. And
that makes sense.
It's just a really good early blocker that you with these Ascend decks, you want to play something on turn one and there's something on turn that you just want to play things every spot at the curve and hit your ascend as quickly as possible. Other key cards for these sorts of archetypes, Squire's Devotion's really good. In a bit of the same way as Mark of the Vampire was good in triple Ixalan, but this makes an extra permanent, so it's not quite as punishing if it gets removed. And also the lifelink's really helpful against the aggressive decks that still exist.
Absolutely. I find that the control decks, like having some kind of life gain is like super useful. I 3-0'd with the blue-white Ascend deck last night, and exactly what you were saying, the Snowport Sentries, Spirewinders, Sailor of Means, and Devotion, all really great. What's the Windrake called? The Griffin?
Resplendent Griffin, I believe.
Resplendent Griffin.
Yeah, that card's also really good. And if you see one picks 4/5, I'm quite happy to move it in quite hard on the deck.
Sounds cool.
The interesting thing about the blue-white deck, though, is that it's hard with it being a new thing to judge where other teams are going to be on it and where their relative evaluation of the cards is going to be. So it's things like whether they have Snub-Horn Sentries over Sailor of Means, things like that, when like where you take the relative enablers, payoffs, things like that, can potentially lead to some quite awkward drafts where people think the deck's open because they have alternative priorities next to each other.
I see.
So that's going to be quite interesting to see, because I think after the Pro Tour and even on the Pro Tour coverage, we'll see quite a lot of people talking about this Ascend deck as being something that they found as their testing process. Overall, though, we do still think that Black-White Vampires is the best deck, and it's one that James in particular is moving in on quite hard, and one we expect a lot of people to be quite keen on drafting at the Pro Tour. Merfolk is quite powerful, but we find it very hard to actually get into the deck because there aren't that many good Merfolk cards in Rivals of Ixalan. So you sort of have to rely on being hooked up in the final booster, and if the cards aren't opened, you end up with a pretty medium deck.
I also find that a lot of the good cards that go into the Merfolk deck out of Rivals of Ixalan are just going to go into every single green deck. Like Jungleborn Pioneer has just been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, Jungleborn Pioneer is, we think, the best green common by a significant margin.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement. I've been picking it over Hunt the Week.
We think there's a big gap between Jungleborn Pioneer, Gilbert Stalker, and then there's a huge gap between Hunt the Week, and we actually think green is the weakest color by quite a large margin.
Interesting. Cool. How's your testing regime been this week? Because when did you land? And
so I flew out straight after GP London, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, and arrived in Bilbao pretty late. All the public transport finished, so I had to get a taxi from the airport, which wasn't cheap. Arrived in the flat, did some bits and pieces on my own Monday morning before everyone else arrived, and then since then we've just been more or less sitting at the table next to each other, drafting on Magic Online, alternating. So someone would draft, then the next person would draft, then the next person would draft, and then they'd play their games out. And we'd never have two people draft at the same time, so all three of us could input on each other's drafts and discuss picks.
And then you'll play the games at the same time, or do you?
Yeah, we'll play the games at the same time, more or less on our own. But if we get to particularly interesting points, we'll ask the others. And then, as and when we feel like we need a break from drafting, we sit down and play a few games of Modern, or look at our sideboard, things like that. Look at lists that have been posting the 5-0s on Magic Online, things like that.
Okay, for
so
Modern,
go on.
Have you been proxying? Because obviously, do you have
James brought
a lot of proxies, I imagine.
Yeah, James brought most of the Modern decks proxied. Because we'd been talking to each other before we came out, he didn't bother to do Grixis Death Shadow because he knew I was bringing it. But we've had the Jeskai, the Affinity, the Burn, all the sort of major decks we're expecting to be more than 5% of the meta proxied.
Excellent.
And jamming against those. But mostly we've been testing the decks we're playing against each other because we're not going to be as familiar with the other decks, and we need higher level testing than blindly picking up a deck. So, for example, I've never played Lantern in my life. I wouldn't know where to start. And I don't want anyone else's testing to be impacted by my failings, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you could maybe pick up some edge just by actually, playing the deck and therefore sort of increasing your percentages when you're facing Lantern opponents, or do you just find the whole thing kind of not very productive?
So that's actually most of what I did. between when I qualified from the RPTQ and before I started focusing on sealed for GP London is that I would take a deck I'd never played with for a spin on Magic Online. So I played a league with Burn, I played a league with all sorts of different decks that I'd never played with. I even got scammed into playing Belcher, which was not fun. And that one wasn't as serious, but the general gist was I didn't feel like any of the decks was significantly better than I would be with Grixis Death Shadow, and that's why I ended up just focusing on Grixis Death Shadow.
Cool. Okay. I mean, Grixis Death Shadow is quite a sort of... I mean, obviously you'll have some pretty good matchups and pretty bad matchups. For the most part, it's fairly close to 50, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm hoping I draw Team of Battle Rage quite a lot because that seemed to work last weekend, at the RPTQ weekend.
It does patch up the a lot of the bad matchups as well.
Definitely. I wouldn't play the deck without it.
Cool. How's the venue? Because you said you went in to register and all that, right?
Yeah, so the venue is pretty cool. I will be posting a load of pictures on my Twitter page, Arcanite2805. I've shared a link in the Murphy's Vault group. And yeah, I'll probably do a bit more of a detailed write-up after the event's over and get that up on the Murphy's Vault website as well.
Excellent. So we were all at GP London. Yeah, we were all four of us at GP London last weekend. Alex, why don't you tell me about your main event?
Yes, so I the event, in case anyone wasn't aware, was Rivals of Ixalan Limited. So sealed on day 1, draft on day 2. I opened my pool and I didn't have any like super powerful rares. I had a lot of decent cards, a lot of like good playables or whatever. But nothing like particularly powerful, I don't think. I think my most individually powerful card was arguably Jace Cunning Castaway, if not Jace Cunning Castaway, and then like a removal spell, which I think tells you about like the top end of my pool. But I had a very solid black-white deck, decent curve, bunch of 2-drops, couple combat tricks, just enough removal essentially. That played out fine. I went a total of 4 and 3 on day 1 after my 2 buys, which meant I got to 6 and 2 to make the cut, and then lost in the last round. I feel didn't play particularly excellently. Probably could have pulled out another winner. I was a bit tighter on the day, but I was played against some decks that had some just top end that I really wasn't going to beat. But yeah, made it through day 1 into the draft portion.
Good job. Actually, that's a good opportunity. What do you think about everybody? What do we think about the new kind of setup with the cut for day 2?
I'm not sure if I like it, but having not been like I died by round 6, not having been live till the very end, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Okay.
I'm slightly mixed on it. I think the objective of Wizards in making this cut earlier was to try and shorten day 1 of the Grand Prix, because what they do for constructed Grand Prix is they actually put round 9 on the Sunday morning. But I think that they missed that the problem with the length of GPs was at sealed GPs, and this doesn't make day 1 of sealed GPs any shorter.
But they're not trying to cut the amount of people in day 2 as well.
That's the other factor. I think that their opinion that 7-2 was too harsh of a cut and 6-3 was too lenient of a cut. I think making the cut at 6-2 does actually hit the sweet spot, and it really focuses you on day 1 that like I played better knowing that the cut was at 6-2 than if it was at 6-3. Unfortunately, I lost in round 8 to put myself to 5 and 3, but I honestly would have expected about 5 and 3 from my deck, so it didn't feel too bad.
Yeah, I think I need to play more of it to be completely sure, but I think it's a reasonable compromise. I also saw one of the judges tweet that this was they felt a very fast time to finish a sealed day 1. It was still quite long, but I think the fact that you were dead after 3 losses means that more people drop earlier, which does reduce the round times a bit.
I think it was definitely shorter than, say, GP London last year. It felt that way anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of, like when the day finished. It was still fairly late, obviously, but it didn't feel like it was...
Another thing that Channel Fireball did is they actually pre-registered everyone's pools.
Oh, that
So
was
Oh, that was
amazing.
amazing.
So the whole process took a lot less time because all you needed to do was check that it was pre-registered correctly rather than sort the cards, write them all down, then your partner opposite you checks them, then you get them back to tech build. It probably shaved a good 20-25 minutes off that whole process.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
certainly enjoy that much better than registering, and kudos to all the judges that had to do that over the weekend. Like, that has got to take
Yeah.
so much time.
Yeah. Huge shout out to the judge staff at the GP. I think they did a really good job.
It's insane. Honestly, as soon as I got given the deck box with the cards in it and the list and everything, I was just thinking, how much time must it have taken to do 2,000 of these? Or, I mean, it was
Yeah.
just shy of 2,000,
I
but
heard.
it's pretty nuts.
So the first time I encountered a pre-registered pool was at GP Vegas, and I think I heard one of the judges there saying that they had a machine that did it. Like, this was while we were building our pools, and they said, we're going to give you your pool, it's pre-registered, you're going to pass it to the person opposite you, they're going to check your pool is correct, because sometimes the machine makes some mistakes.
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
not sure. I'm not sure if they actually have a machine that does the sorting
I think
and
it's
counting, or if they use that as a joke to refer to the judges that have to do it.
I think what it might be is that they have a camera set up that can recognize the cards and they have a judge
Yes.
pass the cards relatively rapidly under it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that would
traders
make
had
sense
that a
to
lot
me.
this weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be something similar to that sort of setup.
Yeah, and it logs all the cards in the pool, and then they can print out, because the sheets are definitely printed, so there's someone coming out of a computer at some point. But yeah, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
it's a troll trader that had it. It's this kind of little fold out camera thing, and you just
It's
kind
very
of pass
cool.
the card underneath it, and it will figure it out as long as there's not too much glare or anything. But I mean, that's still quite a bit of effort, I imagine, even if
Definitely.
it's just passing cards under a camera. It's a lot of cards. So yeah, Steph, how was your main event?
My main event it started well. So I had the one buy, and when I opened my seal pool, it was one of the very first times I'd had a seal pool where I went, right, there is one deck that I am in here. Like, there wasn't any other option as far as I could see. All the other colours were really shallow, so I ended up in red black pirates at splash blue, which was a mistake that I eventually realised. But the deck didn't have any sort of bombs, didn't have a very good top end, so I was expected to go 4-4 with it at the very best. And yeah, went 3-3 and dropped the play legacy. So I'm not too disappointed. I didn't do a lot of practice for the event due to money constraints, but I had a lot of fun. The format's actually, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Rebels is pretty good. I've been enjoying it as well, and I've seen like a lot of. I don't know. It's really interesting to think about the limited meeting that we had a few weeks ago, and then getting quite a few drafts and seal pools under your belt, and watching opinions shift and everything.
It certainly was very helpful, but
Yeah.
just I didn't get enough sort of experience with trying different decks and seeing if there was other cards that were worth playing that weren't sort of as synergistic. But I think I was definitely in the right deck, but it wasn't good enough to put up any good result.
Oh well. But then you played Legacy.
Yeah, so I had the best
You love
weekend.
playing Legacy. Tell us about Legacy then. You played it because Tim obviously was down playing Legacy as well. So yeah, run us through your events.
So we ended up playing. So Tim got the Fnatic package, I think it's called.
Yep.
And he had the 6 events all over the weekend, and we took down every deck that we had. So we had Tez, so the Epic Storm, we had Elves, we had Show and Tell, or Omni Shambles, with the Cunning Wish package, and we were just sort of chopping and changing the decks in between. I think I sort of broke even over the weekend, so having not played Elves for a while, I was quite happy with that. And just going into a room where I didn't know, like the room was very different from what I would expect in Edinburgh.
Oh, definitely.
So my deck wasn't actually built to be able to beat all of the sort of mid-range decks, but I took what games I think I could. There wasn't a lot of combo that I saw. Like, there was the odd Belcher deck, but not a lot of people were playing and doing well with like Storm or Belcher or anything like that, or Infect. There was a lot of Delver decks, a lot of check pile, and like some show and tell decks, one of which was one of the strangest things I think I've ever seen. It was a show and tell deck that was like a 12-post deck running Primeval
Okay.
Titan.
What? Okay, so what is blue green? What is it?
I don't even know.
There is
I think-
a blue-green 12-post deck.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
blue-green 12-post deck that runs show and tell Primeval Titan, a couple of the Eldrazi Titans, but the one interaction that Tim told me about was this lad playing Primeval Titan, getting some more ramp and getting a Tabernacle. He's against Death and Taxes. He untaps. He plays Emrakul the Promised End.
Okay.
Controls his Death and Taxes
man.
player's turn.
Oh no,
Decides not to pay for Tabernacle.
Oh, jeez.
that's brutal.
And I think he may have also used his opponent's Caracas to bounce his Emrakul back to his hand.
These
Why not?
cards were
Why
never
not?
designed to be played together.
Just let them know you'll do it every turn.
Like, this is the fate that you're now consigned to. Enjoy it.
It's
So
really,
I
really
wish I'd
weird
seen
slaver
that.
look.
I wish I'd seen it. That deck sounds hilarious. It sounds right up my street.
Fantastic. Bloody hell. That's really, really, really weird Mindslaver look. My understanding is that the room was also quite competitive as well because there was all of the London Eternal guys down. They've got that, the Jace playmat with a kind of London Eye kind of thing in the middle. So there's quite a few of those playmats out and about. And those guys play Legacy every single week.
It was always the same players at every event, so you got to recognise a lot of faces because it's the people that play the Legacy side events at GPs love Legacy and they're properly into it. So
Nun's obviously got a big scene, and the side events. So what were they? Is it a 4-round?
No.
Tournament?
This is one thing I didn't actually quite enjoy. It's 3 rounds,
Okay.
and there's one firing every 2.5 hours. So you don't even get to play a full event before you have to drop if you want to join the next one. So there was a lot of situations where you'd go 2 or you'd go 1-1, and you and your opponent would draw the last round so that one of you could join the next event.
Right.
So you were technically only playing 2 rounds of Magic in each one. I really didn't enjoy it. But
even if you're 2-0 and you're drawing, you're getting good prizes. At the end of the day, you're there to play Legacy, and it's so rare that you're going to get that many people together to play Legacy.
yeah. But
That's a
being
shame.
able to play 4 rounds is like living the dream, Like having 4 rounds, having less time between the events at the start and end of the day. But if they're just testing it out, I don't think it really worked. But that is my personal preference.
Okay, cool. So I guess I should talk about my main event. So I also played Black-White in my sealed pool. I had a really good vampire deck actually, which had a Champion of Dusk in it. There was also a Forerunner of the Legion to go fetch it up, and I remember starting off the day, and so I win my first match off on a Malta 5 in the first game, and then I just kind of slam a Champion of Dusk, and it draws me about 6 cards or something insane. And at this point, I'm just thinking I want to be able to get a kind of a ticker essentially to keep track of how many cards this Champion of Dusk draws me throughout day 1. And I think we got up to it was about 40. So at this point, I was just thinking. I actually went up to the prize wall. I had 40 tickets or something stupid from a side event on the Friday, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna get this Champion of Dusk playmat just for the hell of it." But we played against some really good opponents. Actually, the level of play was really, really strong. Just because the PT is the next week, so there were a lot of pros in from America.
There were a ton of them.
A lot of pros in from Asia, and it was really, really crazy. But it was great actually. You get a really good opportunity, and the average level of play was really, really high. Even if you just sign into mtgelo.net or whatever, and you check the average level of players that you're playing against over the course of the tournament, and it was high and it was really good. So I finished the day X2, which I was happy with. I lost to somebody looping a flip Journey of Eternity with a Ravenous Chupacabra. It's this really nice Spanish fella, but absolutely destroyed me.
Also, that game did not look like you were close to winning.
It was so hard. It was just like, all my guys are bears. And I'm like, how do I deal with this stupid thing? And then it kind of looked like, so then I think I beat him up the next game. And in the final game, he flips the Journey. Every time he's just like killing his own creatures with kill spells and then just like making things happen. And he starts like establishing like a lot of value loops of the Journey for Eternity, and I'm just thinking, I think I can fight through all of this. And then I'm using my removal spells to try and get damage in, and he just slams a Waker of the Wilds, and I'm just thinking, oh my god. So yeah, that was a tough game, and then also lost a game to Tetzamok. Lost a match to Tetzamok.
I hear that card's good.
Yeah, it was
Definitely.
that was Christopher Kreutz,
Yeah,
I think
I've
his
heard
name
rumours.
is, and he top 8'd as well. So yeah, it was a good day one.
Is that? Are you sure it was Christopher? Not like Alexander Kreutz?
Alexander Kreutz. I just know it's Kreutz.
I saw a stat, so he drew the very first round of the tournament.
Jeez,
And
he's
then he-
so slow.
he's still
by the
top
way,
eight, yeah.
He made top 8. He is the second person ever to make top 8 after drawing the very first round of the tournament. Out of, I think, like 10,000 people or something to draw
Wow.
the first round of a GP.
Wow.
that's madness.
Well
He's
done, that man.
he
Well-
was so slow, honestly. Like, I mean, respect to him for top 8ing, but there was a point in game 2 where we've got 15 minutes on the clock, and he's just taking so long to think about every single decision. And I'm just like, you need to speed up a little bit.
He's one of those players
just
you
like,
think, I know why you've got to draw.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
to point this out, but pot kettle black?
Dan's not so bad now.
Oh, I've
You have
changed.
gotten better.
I've made improvements there. I guess, yeah, I can sort of see. But it was just, how was it he said? He just said something like, oh, we got plenty of time. And it was only after the game when I was chatting to him that he thought we were in game 3 at that point. I'm just thinking, like, you can't,
Oh no.
you absolutely can't do this. But yeah, outside of that, so day 1 was pretty good. I had to played against the guy on Lingering Souls as well. He had a pretty good deck. He was a nice guy.
Team
it was-
Lingering Souls, not Lingering
Yeah.
Souls, the cards.
No.
Obviously not legal in the Rivals of Ixalan format.
That would be
so-
really, really
Oh, is
good
it not?
in Rivals
I'd be
of
Boo.
so
Ixalan.
good in this format.
Insane. Branoc, you've got a dash, right? You were saying earlier.
Yeah, I have a Pro Tour in the morning, and I'm an hour in the future relative to you guys.
Humble
So
brags.
I need to
Go to bed. Go to bed.
sleep
Go
my
to bed.
deck and go to bed.
You've not
So
slept your deck.
Good luck.
Best
Go,
of luck to
go.
you, man.
I will
Rooting for you.
wish you all goodbye, and hopefully I come back with some more Pro points.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Looking
joining
forward.
us tonight.
Catch you later,
And
friends.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
we're definitely going to be giving you a shout tomorrow. Keep us updated and all that.
Absolutely.
And, best of luck, buddy.
Awesome. Nice to speak. All right. Bye.
Gotcha.
Bye bye.
We're talking about the draft.
Where
now?
were we? Yeah, let's talk about draft.
Me and Dan both
So-
made day 2.
Yeah, talk about your drafts. Talk about day 2. Let's go.
All right, so I unfortunately I lost my last round of the first day to Eric Froelich, so no shame in losing there, but I do feel like I could have beaten him because I
More on him later.
didn't play the best and probably made some suboptimal decisions in sideboarding or whatever. So the first draft, I'm in the X and free brackets, and I'm thinking, well, I need to it's probably like some 11-4s will cash, so 5 and 1 gives me a chance, but my tiebreak is probably bad, so really I need to go like 5-0-1 or whatever, maybe draw it in the last round to cash. So the first pack, I open a Path of Metal. This is the red-white flip
Ooh.
enchantment.
Do you first pick Path of Metal?
I did not first pick it. The pack has a Swift Warden Everdorn champion, which I'm deciding between. So the 1 green 3/3 flash Merfolk that gives a Merfolk hexproof, and the 1 white 2/2 that doesn't take damage in combat. I decided to take the Swift Warden, and
I like that.
it then becomes pretty clear to me. I think I take a Waterknot second, but I don't really see any more green or blue cards. It seems like red is somewhat open and white is very open. I wheel the Everdorn champion.
Ooh.
At this point,
Sick.
the Path of Metal is still in the pack. And I have, I think, like a fanatical firebrand and the red-white uncommon, the Raptor, that has Vigilance.
Relentless Raptor.
Oh yeah.
Relentless Raptor. And I think I have a Stormfleet Swashbuckler that gets double strike when you have Ascent. And I read the keywords on Path of Metal, and I think we can do it.
We just have to attack with two of these three idiots.
Live the
I'm
Path of
gonna-
Metal dream.
Yeah, so I took the Path of Metal and decided to go for that. And I've ended up maybe a little short on creatures, so I ended up with 3 Fanatical Firebrands in my deck. The Raptor. I ended up with the 4-mana 2/3 Vigilant Dinosaur from Ixalan that you can like tap to deal some damage to a thing before it hits it in combat.
Steadfast Armasaur.
That's the one. And I had the Swashbuckler that can get double strike. I also had a Vampire Zeal and a bunch of vampires in my deck. So my Vampire Zeal was like always live to give something first strike. So I sort of had 7 ways to flip my path, 7 creatures that could flip my path metal, which I think is really too low. And in my matches, except for when I played against vampires, I sided it out because I needed the DO1 to be relevant for it to be worth being in my deck. Also in Pack 2, I opened an Azor's Gateway, which is 2 mana for an artifact, and you can pay
I really
1
like this
and
card.
tap it to loot, draw a card, and exile a card from your hand. It has some text about flipping if you exile a bunch of different mana costs, but in limited, I only ever got close to that happening once. Basically, it filters your lands because there's very few mana sinks in the format, and it's pretty great there. I realized I forgot I had one of these in my sealed deck the previous day, and it was by far the best card in my deck. It was excellent. It won me multiple games where I just like looted a bunch of lands away and won quite easily as a result.
Excellent.
So, I opened this card, and also in the same pack being opening, someone has opened the Gold Forge Sentinel, I think, the 4-mana 4/4 defender. You can pay 2 to have it fight another creature you control.
Oh yeah, the
Oh,
girl.
yeah,
Then if it dies that turn, it transforms into a land that you can pay 4 and tap to make another 4/4. And I'm like pretty convinced this card is excellent. And it's like 2 cards to my left, so I think there's no chance I'm getting it. Like, I think you have to be very aggressive to not want to put it in your deck.
Yeah, and it's colorless, so it's
And
just,
and then the guy, and I passed in Pack 1 as well. 3rd pick, I passed as Zakama. Actually, no, that's yeah. So my 2nd pick, I could have taken as Zakama. So I gave someone a 3rd pick or 4th pick Zakama, like either of those guys they wanted to take it. So if either of them took it, Zakama, then they're playing like a big ramp deck, and they definitely want the 4/4 defender, I think.
Zakama is the 9-mana Naya big elder dinosaur.
Yes.
9/9 vigilance, reach, trample, every single ability.
Yeah, and then
What,
you can
the
pay.
Storm Dino?
Yeah, untap your lands, pay free to bolt something, pay free to gain life, pay free to naturalize, whatever. Yeah. So I think one of them's probably taken as a comic, because I do think that card is powerful, and like I said, we're in the 6/3 bracket, and like I took Path of Metal because it was a bit fun, and I want to see if I can do it. Maybe someone did the same as Zakama. They'll take the Guardian. Whatever, I put my Azor's Gateway, that card's great. I'm very happy. And then the first guy passes it, and I think, ooh, maybe I got a chance. Maybe I got a chance to getting it. And then the next guy passes it. So I get a 3rd pick, Goldforge Garrison, and I'm very happy.
That's great.
And then white is so open, like I'm convinced there's only one other white drafter at the table, and I only know that because I play against them in one of the rounds. I get 9th and 10th pick Exultant Sky Marchers, so the 2/3 flyer for 1 white, which is a particularly good card in this format just because it blocks so well.
I actually really like this card, and it's going sort of similarly to I think not quite as dramatic as Snubhorn Sentry Branoc was talking about earlier.
I think it started like already much more solid in that. I think it's the best white common.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say.
You want to say Squire's Devotion or Luminous Bonds are better than it, but I think it's like easily in the top 3, and there's probably a sizable gap to the next best white common.
Yeah, flies are just incredible, and 2/3 stats is fantastic. The double whites, like, tricky sometimes, but
so anyway, I end up with this Boros control deck. It's basically how I can describe it, with 1-drops, which is a bit weird, but turns out Fanatical Firebrand's like a decent removal spell in this format because there's a lot of X1s. So yeah, I played against vampires in round 1, and Path of Metal was excellent. It just killed 2 of his things on turn 2. Like, he went 1 mana 2/1 into the 1 mana 1/1 flying vampire. So I just killed both of them, and then I flip it. later in the game, and it allows me to cast an extra spell that turn. It was very good for. And as soon as I'm about to start activating it, he concedes. I then play against a Merfolk deck, which I'm still a bit tilted by because their mana base seemed absolutely terrible.
Was this the like three color thing?
Yeah, every turn they go forest, island, plains. As far as I could tell, the plains was for a radiant destiny, so that's the glorious anthem for a creature type.
Yeah.
I also saw a Conqueror's Pride, the one in the white, give all your creatures +1/+1 or +2/+2 if you have a send.
The like.
And then in the second game, they play a swamp after like another forest, and then they play a swamp, and I'm thinking they have a swamp in their deck as well. I don't understand how you can have this in your Miscloaked Herald Jadebearer deck, but
they did it, and they won.
And then in the final round of that draft, I play against a pretty good red-green dinosaur deck. The guy has 3 Raging Regisaurs in his deck.
Oh, jeez.
And like 3 Stampeding Horncrests as well. So his top end, he's like a bit heavy in the top end, but he has a lot of big guys. I get pretty lucky in game 1 that I get the Path of Metal down and flipped before he can like trade off for enough of my creatures to stop me, and then I can ride it. I managed to ride it to victory. Instantly side it out because I think he has a lot of enraged creatures. This is probably bad. It's never killing anything on his side, and I'm lucky if I can flip it. So yeah, I just play like this Boros sort of control deck, and I think I sort of inadvertently found the reason. When I was drafting the deck, I thought the deck's probably not great, but I inadvertently stumbled upon the fact that a lot of the aggressive decks in the format are playing a lot of X1s, and I had a lot of deal 1 damage effects in my deck. My second draft also had this. I had a red-green deck in the second draft with some enraged cards.
Something that Branoc was saying, that the aggressive decks are getting worse. I think it's because there's a lot of way to deal with X1s, and everyone is picking them quite highly.
Absolutely. I had a dual shot in my second deck, and it was just excellent. Like,
Shake the Foundations is so good.
Yeah. I could cast it on. I mean, it was better in my deck because I had enraged creatures, some good enraged creatures as well, like a Needletooth Raptor and a Ripjaw Raptor. So I don't know if you like work hard to deal the enrage on, but I would often just cast it and just kill 2 of my opponent's things, like my dual shots. So yeah, I think so our initial impressions of the format and what I thought sort of going into it was it's a bit slower than Ixalan, but still the aggressive decks are better. And I do think that the very best aggressive decks are the best decks in the format. But at the same time, if the aggressive decks are overdrafted, then you're not going to get those late Guiltgrove Stalkers or whatever you want to put in your deck. And at the same time, people will be prioritizing things like Dual Shot, Forerunner of the Legion. It becomes like really excellent if you're expecting a bunch of X1s and to be
Forerunner of the Empire, the red one.
Of the Empire, sorry, yes, the red one, yes. I always get those 2 confused.
That's okay. All the names in these sets are terrible.
So I inadvertently found that these defensive decks are actually reasonably decent as long as you have some ways to contain the aggressive starts of your opponents. And cards, I had Snubhorn Sentry in my red-white deck, and it was like pretty decent for me just because it could come down and block or enable that plus my 2-drop to block a Goblin Trailblazer.
Exactly, I was going to mention Trailblazer. Like them, like Snubhorn allowing your 2-drop to block Trailblazer is like really big.
So I ended up going 2-1 with my Boros control deck and 1-2 with my red-green Dinosaurs deck. I punted my final game. I was tired and failed to notice that my opponent had to ascend and got into a bad fight with my Needletooth Raptor.
Right.
Still almost won. I put him in a situation where he needed to top deck something to not have to like basically trade away his entire board, and the next turn he drew a bounce spell to kill me. But yeah, it was a reasonable tournament. I finished 9-6 overall, which is 1 short of any pro points and 2.5 wins short of any money.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it much more than I was expecting to going in. I think because the format turns out that the slow decks are like reasonably viable. So yeah, it was.
The tournament was well run as well. Like the tournament was just a lot of fun generally, I think.
Yes, yeah.
So on my drafts, my first draft was I'm walking up to the draft table and Ferg good buddy of ours, is on the table next to me, and he's sitting opposite Saporito, I think.
Oh,
And he's just
Tiago.
kind of like, Tiago Saporito.
Not Saprito in the first draft, because
You're
Duncan,
not?
another friend of ours, was drafting with Saprito in the
Oh,
first draft.
okay. I can't remember who he had.
That was it. I think that was the second draft.
Yeah, because that was the second draft where he's got like
Yeah.
Michael Bondi and a bunch of other people in it as well. So anyway, I walk past Ferg and he's smiling. And he kind of like tilts his head towards my pod, I think. And I look up and there's like BBD sitting over there and everything, and I'm like, okay, right, cool. And then I go over to the I go over to sit down, and is it Florian Cook, the guy that writes the player?
Cock. Yeah.
Okay, cool. He's he looks up. He's like, "Oh, you must be Daniel." And I was just thinking, I don't believe we'd met. But yeah, my name's Daniel. He was like, "Oh yeah, it's just because I know everybody else here." It's just like, oh god.
You're the only
And
unknown one at the table.
yeah, it was pretty mad. But there was like Hao Shan Huang, who's this Taiwanese pro.
Yeah, MTG mint card.
Yeah, he's on mint card. Eduardo Kalik, Bensek.
Also on mint card, I believe. Eduardo, or maybe on Connected Company, which is like mint card's sister team.
Yeah, not sure. But anyway, we have BUD passing to us and chatting a little bit before the draft starts, and I open my pack and there's a Legion Lieutenant in it. So I'm just thinking, okay, this card was pretty damn good for me yesterday, and nothing else in the pack looks. I think there was like a Bombard or something was like the next best card, so I was just like, all right, cool, I'm picking the gold card. And then pass the pack, pick up the next pack. There's another Legion Lieutenant in it. So I'm thinking, right, cool, we're in. Let's go. And then things get a bit weird after that. Black dries up quite a lot, but white seems fairly, like, I'm still getting some good white cards. And then we open pack 3, and we get an Ixalan's Binding first pick, which feels really great. Because I was thinking I need one more kind of catch-all removal spell, and that is the catch-alliest. So that was cool. And yeah, generally pack 3 is pretty nice to us, and we round out with a good amount of playables to go with our silly bomby 2-drops. First round is Eduardo. He's on red-black pirates. He sets up, I think I stumble on lands one game. And in another game, he plays the 2/2 double striker, Stormfleet Duelist?
Swashbuckler.
Yeah, Swashbuckler. The one that gets double strike with Ascend.
Yeah.
That's it. I hate the card names. So he sets that up with a really, really quick Ascend, and he's got a Direfleet Neckbreaker on board. So he's just 18 me every turn, which is like puts me in the abyss very quickly. And I'm not even gaining life off my vampire tokens because they're just getting first striked away. So that went poorly. But the game was good. It's quite cool, actually. He sort of taught me, well, not taught me, but he showed me how, because he knows that I was writing down all the card names that he was playing as well. Mm-hmm. And he was showing me his notation that he uses for tricks and things like that. And it's fairly straightforward, but he just kind of highlights it with this big T with a circle, and then he's got good shorthand writing for all the creatures, because as I said earlier, all the names are terrible. So 3/3 Orc Pirate is much better than Fathom Fleet whatever. So we lose to Eduardo, and then we play against Hao Shan Huang, who's on a Naya Dinosaurs build, I do believe, who we have one pretty close game where like we're just top decking kind of thing, and I go run on removal spells to win the game, and then we have a really, really tight match. Well, the one where we go run around on removal spells was like that was a pretty tight game until that point, and then I think he stumbles a bit in the next game, and then I start flooding, but I think I get a flyer or something like that and kill his Pterodon. And then the final game is against some Italian fella who was actually the only other person at the draft pod who, didn't seem like he was a pro or anything like that. Turns out his name is also Daniel, so that's where the Florian Cook thing.
2 unknown Daniels.
What's like Daniele or something? He's this really, really nice Italian fella who's on this blue-black Ascend build, who plays the the enchantment, which is both players draw a card on your upkeep, but if you have Ascend, only you do. And he's got a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's actually quite tough. It's a really, really tough game because he's playing he's getting to Ascend really quickly, and then he's playing Secrets of the Golden City, and it gets a bit awkward. But yeah, we have some really, really good games, and I come out on top to finish 2-1, so I'm feeling on top of the world at this point because I'm X and 3.
And
Still
now you
live
get
in
strapped
top
with
16.
BBD again.
Sorry, what's that?
You X3, now you get strapped with BBD again.
Exactly, because he
Get passed
2-1s.
to by BBD again.
Exactly, he 2-1s, and then because he loses to Eduardo in the final, Eduardo wins that draft in the end and goes on to top 8 later. And then I go to sit down on my next table, and BBD's just sitting there smiling, and I'm just like, oh, so that went all right then. And he tells me about the final against Serge Kalik. And yeah, anyway, so we talk about our decks. His deck sounded really sweet, actually. He had this mad multicolored deck where I think it was like a Naya Dino deck, and he had Awakening Sun's Avatar out the board, and he blew a couple of people out with it, and it's really cool. Then this pod with BBD has also got a fair few very, very strong players in it. Zarek Froelich across the way as well. So I'm thinking, right, we're in for another one, but this is okay. We can manage. My draft is not quite as good as my first one. It's a Merfolk deck. I first pick a Mistbinder. Again, it's just a gold card out of a weak pack, but then I get past a Swift Warden, and I'm just thinking, okay, well, this is going to work. Blue is not too open, but I end up with a few Crashing Tides to complement my very, very open green card pool. So it's fine. And I actually think that the deck ends up looking pretty strong. And things don't go quite our way this time. We face a Vampire player in the first round who has double Legion Lieutenant, quadruple Conquistador, a Forerunner, and all of these things that are just terrible if it's the Bears versus Bears matchup. So that didn't go so well. Really nice guy though. I misplayed on a few things by misreading the board because there were just quite a lot of pump effects going on, and punt one of the games away. It was really frustrating because I think I've been playing really, really tight up until that point, and we'll more on this later. But yeah, there's a bit of a decline at this point. What was I going to say about that? I don't think I can beat this guy over 3 games anyway. His deck's really, really strong. Yeah, good job him. He's a really, really nice jump for Paul. Move on to the next round. We get the pairing. It's Eric Froelich. He is on a blue-black Ascend build with 3 copies of Secrets of the Golden City, I think, and 2 Chupacabras, and he's splashing for the what's it called?
Sunbird's Invocation.
Sunbird's Invocation. Bloody hell!
Wow.
That card destroyed me. So we play very poorly in this game. Very, very poorly. Walking into some on-board stuff and just not pacing our attacks correctly or anything like that. So we lose the game, and I'm trying to think what's going on at this point. And I'll get the last game out of the way, and then we'll talk about it. But the last game is against... let me think. Was Paolo? Was Paolo on? Can't recall exactly. It was the blue-white Ascend guy. It was blue-white Ascend, and we get boggled twice. Slippery Scoundrel with Squire's Devotion on it, while getting blocked by 1/1s. The first game is particularly unfortunate because I feel like I actually collect myself at this point, and I'm just thinking, right, you're X and 4. You're X and 5. You just need to win this game. Come out with a pro point. You've had a really good weekend. Let's do it. And I draw my 7, and I'm using Channel Fireball sleeves because they're my kind of rubbishy sleeves that I have for drafting that I get for free at GPs. And because I'd been using them all day, they get a bit sticky, and 2 cards stick together. So after I mulligan to 6, I actually draw 7, and I pick up my hand. I realize this. Call a judge on myself. Call a judge on myself. Then we get faced with the choice of mulligan to 5 or get them to Thoughtseize you. I spawn on Thoughtseize because I can take a land. I decide I've got like 2-3 drops, a Tempest Caller, and lands. And so I actually, and I'm on the draw, I think. No, yeah, I'm on the draw. So I actually think that I want them to Thoughtseize me here because I don't think that they can pick apart the hand too much. And I think that was correct because we end up losing by a turn because we couldn't quite race the Scoundrel, and I was holding a Tempest Caller all game to try and kind of win on that turn, but we were 1 turn shy. Then we play in the second game. I don't understand what hand he keeps, but we just curve out, do a good Merfolk curve, and win the game. And then finally, he plays really, really fast Ascend with a Slippery Scoundrel, and he squares Devotions it twice.
Oh, jeez.
And so there's 8. I just couldn't deal with the 8-point life swings, and I had 0 ways in my deck of dealing with a 4/4 unblockable lifelink hexproof. So that was the end of the tournament. I was really, really disappointed after that draft, going 0-3, because the deck was certainly a 2-1, 1-2 deck at least, and I did misplay to get there. And I think that the big reason for that is that is mainly conditioning. I used to be a lot better at conditioning in long tournaments, I think, and just making sure that I have like small amounts of food throughout the day. Whereas in this, I just remember we finished the first draft. I went and met Alex outside the noodle place, and I just put a whole bunch of rice in my face, which is usually fine.
Chicken and rice.
Chicken and rice. It's usually fine, but in this particular instance, I think I was just stunted after that, and we didn't. I didn't sleep too well on the Saturday night as well. So, yeah, I think that's a lesson learned there. But it was a great tournament, really, really good time. Was really, really happy to have a really strong day one and a strong first draft in a really, really good pod. So yeah.
Yeah, you guys did really well.
So what's next for everyone? We've got a PPTQ this weekend, new standard season coming up. I will be away seeing my godson for Super Bowl weekend. But Alex, you're playing in this, so what are you bringing?
Yeah, so we're going to Castle Comics in Cumbernauld on Saturday. I'm going to be playing a red aggressive deck. Is my plan. Currently playing some pirates on Magic Online. Currently I decide whether or not I'm going to play Path of Metal in the deck because the card is sweet, but I'm not sure if it's better than just consistently getting to go like 1-drop, double 1-drop, which is you have to do more often when you play just mono red. Your mana is just that little bit better. So
and you're playing the 16 1-drop deck or whatever.
Just been running people over with like turn 1 Daring Buccaneer into turn 2 Double Rigging Runner.
Double Rigging Runner is so good.
6 power on turn 2 and 4-bit first strike. Good way to win games, and just a number of 1-drops means that curving into Hazaret's like pretty reliable.
I don't know Hazaret was a pirate.
Yeah, Hazaret is an honorary pirate.
We'll put the list in the notes as well.
Yeah,
again, this will come out on Monday. So yeah,
I'll post what I end up playing.
That'd be cool. I actually took the we were chatting about this. I took the deck for a couple of games prior to recording, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed Daring Buccaneer. I think that card was great, and I didn't have too many problems turning it on. I did have a look. It was quite confusing sideboarding because it's really difficult because you've got your kind of not transformative, but you've got your bigger elements in your sideboard, like your Chandra and your Glory Bringers and all that kind of stuff. And you're just thinking, how many 1-drops do I need to cut in order to make this work? How many pirates am I cutting before I have to cut Daring Buccaneer? So that was a little bit tricky, I found. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I've currently playing my first league with it, and I played against a lot of red mirrors where Daring Buccaneer is just like good and you want to leave it in. But I think you can basically only afford to cut 1 pirate before you have to take out the Buccaneers. So at that point, it's often going to be one of the first things you have to take out. Fortunately, I think or at least it's possible to set up the deck in a way where all the 1-drop pirates that you have that enable Daring Buccaneer, so that's the Fanatical Firebrands and the Rigging Runners, are all good in the same matchups that the Daring Buccaneer is also good in, which is against other small creature decks or decks where you want to be fast, like control, whatever, and you're trying to get underneath them. So you can have them all in your deck, or you can have them all out of your deck, and then that gives you it means that you have to sideboard larger amounts. You're sideboarding 12 cards essentially whenever you're taking them out. But yeah, it means that you sort of have that package of cards that's all trying to stick together.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, I need to finish that league, and I'll take that on board. But yeah, essentially the list is the one drops we're talking about. You're playing all your Bowback Couriers, your Daring Buccaneers, Fanatical Firebrands, and Rigging Runners, and you're also playing 2 Direfleet Daredevils in the main, just to kind of bring up the power count.
And 3 carry reserves, so you get to a total of 17 pirates, including your Daring Buccaneers, which means that each other Daring Buccaneer has 16 pirates you can reveal. Each Daring Buccaneer has 16 other pirates you can reveal to it, which so far I've only had to cast one sad Buccaneer. or had one Buccaneer that I couldn't cast for 1 mana when it was relevant, so yeah.
Good old Grey Ogre. Yeah, the deck's pretty sweet. There is that funny thing with the spells where you got 3 shocks, 3 brazen strikes at the moment, trying to find the right numbers.
Yeah,
but
I'm just trying to figure out which ones I want, so I've just put 3 of each in for testing purposes.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes sense to me. And we've also got who else have we got going on Saturday? I know Nathaniel is thinking about bringing a Esper Gift deck.
Nathaniel's been playing a bunch of blue-black Gates in the Afterlife gift builds. I don't think he's liking the Esper one most at the moment, so he'll be there with that. We're going to have Leandro and maybe Linz representing our green-black players.
Snake.
Good old Rock.
Andrew's also going to be there. I'm not sure what he's planning on playing at the moment, but yeah, it should be good. Good turnout from the team. About half of us going, so hopefully we can bring an invite back with us.
Nathaniel, one of the last things he said in the standard channel was he was thinking about trying Profane Procession on the board, which I really like the sound of.
Yeah, that card pretty much destroys some decks. I just can't beat it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the right matchup with it, it's just that card's so great. But yeah, no, it should be good. So we're getting a good turnout. Apologies, I can't be there, but it should be good. It'll be interesting to see what everybody else is playing. And outside of that, what else have we got upcoming? You and I have GP Lyon in about 2 weeks' time, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's a couple weekends from now. So I'm going to be playing some Modern.
Yeah.
Hopefully the PT doesn't reveal some busted deck that we have to play, like Eldrazi Winter, but yeah, it should be good.
I don't think it will. So a lot of people are kind of talking about this because there's this kind of hubbub where people are saying, oh, the pros are going to break it. But my theory is that doesn't, I don't think that happens. I think, as you were mentioning earlier.
Perfect storm for the Gatewatch, the printing of the Eldrazi, of those cheap Eldrazi in the way they interact with
the Soul Lands.
With the Soul Lands, yeah, exactly. They essentially, at that point, was a legacy deck. You see Eldrazi being a deck in Legacy, and the Modern version was basically just some City of Traitors and Ancient Tombs away from being that deck. So
yeah, there doesn't seem to have been anything printed that is breakable for Modern at the moment.
Yeah,
we haven't really had anything make a significant impact since Fatal Push.
We'll get. I mean, as I think Alex touched on this earlier, but we'll get a lot of Lantern, I imagine, which will be interesting. And I'm excited to see what the results yield. We're thinking of playing some kind of Death Shadow build for Lyon. Have you played any Traverse Shadow in the last couple of weeks?
Not recently. The last thing I played was something similar to what I think Reed Duke posted a list when he did his Fatal Push and Fort C's article series.
Yeah.
He did a Jund main deck version with some white cards on the sideboard, and I played something similar to that. I've been a fan of just trying to kill people recently and battle rage them out.
Yeah, the battle rage numbers have been creepy now.
With the field in Modern being so wide at the moment, even for Modern, it's very wide. So
I'm on 2 battle rages in a rampager at the moment, and yeah, I mean, you just want more and more of that effect. What you're saying. just get people dead. But yeah, the deck's really sweet. I really like playing it at Discard Spells. I played it at the Team GP in Madrid last year, a couple months ago, and I had a really, really good time with the deck. So I'm really excited to be jamming that. And what's the other recent changes? There's a couple of Grim Flayers in the main as well, just to kind of up the threat count, which I'm really, really for, because I remember in Madrid feeling like I just need 1 or 2 more threats in this deck. Even if they're not subpar, but not as good as Shadow and Goyf.
When Death Shadow sort of first broke out around this time last year, and people were building all the black-green lists just before Grixis sort of really took off, people were starting to get to the point where they had like a couple of Grim Flares in their list because they found that like the 4 Tarmogoyf 4 Death Shadow was just a couple of creatures short, and Grim Flare is significantly worse than both of those, but it's just about good enough.
Yeah.
Like, you see the Grixis decks playing Gurmag, yeah? Why, like, I'm just thinking about Rug Delver and Legacy. Is there any point in the Jund players playing Hooting Mandrills?
No cantrips. So you don't fill the yard as...
Don't fill the yard as easily as the Grixis. Cool, yeah.
Exactly.
I figured there would be a reason.
Yeah, so you don't have Fort Scour to turbo them out in the same way, but you could fill your graveyard enough, but the main thing is you have Traverse the Ulvenwald, and that's a serious number with the Delve cards.
So you want to keep the Delirium on. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So you end up with Grimflare, which, to be honest, like, when you're bashing with a Grimflare and fixing your draws, you do kind of feel pretty godly at times. So yeah, I'm excited for that. That's going to be really good. And then following that, we've got GP Madrid in another month after that, where we're still kind of lining up teams and everything for that. So that's all very exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna have 2 teams going out there, so that was good.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing some Legacy for that. I'm very excited. But that's all we've got for this week. I think. Have we got any final thoughts, guys?
Okay, I have a question for the 2 of you.
Go ahead.
You pick one. You can pick one player. Who do you think is going to win the Pro Tour?
Ooh.
I like. Actually, I remember because we do a fantasy draft every PT, and you were last pick, and you doubled down on Lantern, right? And you went Sam Black and BBD.
Yeah.
I do like those picks quite a lot, because I do think that amongst the established pros, they both have like a really good handle on Modern in general. And then outside of that, I think a really good pick is probably just Seth. Like, you have to be kind of mad not to pick Seth if you're putting any money on anything. So I guess I'll say Seth.
A part of me just wants to say, like, chips all on the table. I'm going to go for Danny Anderson.
Yeah.
All right. I actually think I messed up my fantasy draft. I think I should have taken Piotr Gulowski.
Oh yeah.
So he also plays Lantern. His name's
Is he the guy that invented Lantern?
He didn't invent it, but he has got a lot of trophies with it on Magic Online. And
he's like the one that brought it to the forefront of like everyone's attention.
He might have been pretty instrumental in building the War builds, but I'm not sure on that, so don't quote me. But he top 8'd the last Pro Tour, so clearly he can draft or whatever. And I think he has a good knack of just putting in, like, having the right sideboard or whatever to just dodge what other people are trying to do. So I think if you want to pick a Lantern player, I actually think Piotr might have been the way to go, and I sort of wish he was in my fantasy team.
Oh no, I like our picks though. We've got like the really, really boring vanilla pick of the man who's absolutely on fire at the moment. We've got the hometown hero. We've got the kind of like interesting. I mean, obviously, no, Piotr Gogowski is like a really well-known pro now, obviously, because he top-8'd recently and everything. But I still think it's a really cool pick for the PT.
But yeah, if I had to pick a pro, it would probably be either Brad Nelson or Sam Black, because the sheer fact that neither of those have a PT win is pretty criminal at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, one of those should have a win by now.
Yeah. I actually have a good story about Piotr Gogowski. I was sat next to him during one of the matches at GP London, and his opponent said to him, I think I recognized you. Do you play these tournaments often, or have I seen? Do you like record videos or something? I feel like I recognize your face. And he very modestly said, yeah, I played on some of the Pro Tours. We've done quite well recently. So that enamored me to him.
Yeah, I play Magic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, best of luck to everybody that's competing in the PT.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
really, really excited for this modern PT because
Very good luck to
although
our boys as well.
absolutely, although that people get a bit moody, certainly pros with modern in terms of testing for it and actually competing in it. Like watching modern
Watching
tournaments
modern
is
is
just
great, yeah. It is
it's
excellent.
wondrous. It's fantastic. So I'm really excited for that, and the limited format's really, I think it looks really sweet, and I'm really interested to see what the top draft tables look like.
Yeah, should be good.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. Yeah, we'll try and get this up next week, and hopefully do another episode in a couple of weeks. Apologies for the significant delay between last episode and this one. I just had quite a lot of things going on prior to Christmas, so we're hoping to get on a more regular rota. Stef is now effectively my boss because she's chief content manager. So yeah,
Overtime for you, Danny boy.
oh, there we go. So yeah, hopefully we'll get another episode out in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much for listening, and yeah, have a great time. All
Thanks
right,
for
bye
joining
guys.
us, everyone.
Bye.